You're listening to The Pivot Point, where we unpack the defining moments that shift careers and lives. I'm your host, Laura Dionisio, founder of Lead Intact, and my mission is to spotlight the raw, real stories behind career pivots, the fears, the hopes, the messy middles, and the bold decisions that follow. If you're feeling stuck or quietly wondering what's next, I hope these stories help you see yourself a little more clearly and inspire you to start moving toward your own dream life. Let's begin. Welcome, Theresa, to the Pivot Point podcast, where we share real life stories about different career pivots one has had in their life. I'm so happy to have you
Thank
here.
you.
Round of applause.
Happy to
Theresa
be
being
here. Excited.
Yeah, so before we get started, I want the audience to know that Theresa is actually one of the inspirations behind me creating this podcast because, a couple years ago,
Awesome.
I decided to do some customer research. Do you remember this, Theresa? And I was like,
yeah.
And I had such a great time that I was like, I'm feeling good. Theresa's feeling good. I'm feeling inspired by her. She's feeling inspired by herself because she probably has forgotten that all these things has happened. And so Theresa is one of the reasons why I have decided to create the Pivot Point.
So excited to be here. Yeah, this is awesome. It's awesome. Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and read Theresa's bio so everyone knows who you are and how amazing you are.
Oh, thank you.
Theresa Steighner is an empowerment coach devoted to helping women rediscover who they are, reconnect with their deepest desires, and reclaim the life they dream of. Her work is designed for the woman who knows there's more to life, but feels overwhelmed, disconnected, or unsure of how to take the next step. Through her signature blend of the adult chair model, mindful therapeutic yoga, Reiki, and inner child healing, Theresa guides her clients on a journey inward, helping them identify what's holding them back, process emotions with compassion, and take practical steps toward their North Star. Her coaching style is nurturing, intuitive, and deeply rooted in experience. She's walked this path herself. She supports clients through one-on-one coaching, her signature Reclaiming You group coaching program, transformative self-care workshops, and her popular self-care book club, offering a warm, grounded space for healing, clarity, and meaningful change.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So first off, how does it feel to have me read back your bio to you?
I mean, it feels amazing because as part of it says is like, I have walked this path. So as you are kind of talking through what I do, I'm like, yes, I was there. And now I have come so far in my journey and I want to share that with others. So it's really cool. Yeah.
I love that. And I know this is about career pivots technically, but I am so curious when you say you've walked that path. Can you tell us more about what that path is like and what your clients are usually going through by the time they find you?
I think back to kind of where I was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I was, working full time in a corporate career, 2 kids, married, extended family, kind of helping, and just feeling like I had to do basically everything. Like literally, I was exhausted, I was overwhelmed, and I was kind of going through life on autopilot, like just really just going. And I could feel that I was starting to just think about, is this really all there is? Is this really what it's all about? I was really craving deeper connection in my relationships. I was craving just to feel more, just to feel like I could actually relax, feel calmer, be more present, and not feel exhausted all the time and not feel so overwhelmed. It was almost like there has to be more for me than this. And started to think about my purpose. What am I really here to do? And again, I think it's that craving for close connection in my relationships. So with my children, with my husband, with my family, with my friends. It's almost like I woke up one day because I was going through that autopilot. And I woke up one day and I said, there has to be more. And the way it happened for me was I was like, I have to go on a retreat. I don't know what it was. I don't know why. It was like lightning striking me. And I was like, I have to go on a retreat. I have to start taking care of myself. I heard it and I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I started looking for retreats and I found one, didn't know anybody. And I just went away for the weekend. I really slowed down and I got quiet and I really just started listening to what is it that I really want. I knew I wanted more. I wasn't sure how to get it, but I just took that first step. So that was kind of where I would say it started. It was like that, that point where I was like, there has to be more.
I think a lot of the listeners can relate to the feeling of I'm working full time, but I still feel like I'm doing everything in the household. I'm craving close connections. And when you talk about, you heard it, you just heard the retreat. Can you take us through, like, where were you? What was your state of mind? Just really zoom into that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if I think back to how I was feeling, I was like, I didn't know it at the time, but I was really anxious. I was really overwhelmed. I wasn't sleeping. Like I would wake up at 4 a.m. and think about all that I had to do on my to-do list. I would have these ruminating thoughts about things that weren't going well.
Mm-hmm.
My job seemed like it was too much and I wasn't really enjoying that. I was craving a closer connection in my marriage, in my relationship. I was craving a closer connection with my children. And I just felt kind of just a little bit shut down, kind of just feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. And it was like I wasn't taking care of myself. And I think, if we think back to taking care of yourself, is always like, well, that's selfish, right? You can't put yourself first. You have to put everyone else first and you have to do for everybody else. And that's kind of how you brought up. And so thinking about, well, if I'm going to do something for myself, I was like, first of all, I'm exhausted. Second of all, where am I going to find the time?
Mm-hmm.
And third is like, well, I'd feel so guilty because I wasn't doing, that pile of laundry or those dishes or, whatever else that was calling my name. And the retreat coming in was like, because I can remember being on Google going, okay, there has to be a retreat close by. And that was also the time that I kind of got reconnected back with Michelle. And she was doing some workshops in the adult chair, and that was in Tennessee. But I found something that was within driving distance.
Yeah,
and,
sorry. Can I ask you real quick? Because
here,
I feel like some of our listeners are like, I'm with you, Theresa. I'm feeling all the things that you're talking about. And there was a voice that said, I need to take care of me. But then, like you said, there's that guilt. It's selfish for me to put myself first. So what happened internally for you to actually get on Google and say, no, there's got to be a retreat? So like what, from the point of like you were feeling guilty for even thinking about you wanted to do something for yourself to like, no, I am looking for a retreat close by. Like walk us through like what made you finally decide, yes, I'm doing that.
I think it got to the point where it was no longer tolerable. Mm-hmm. So the way I was feeling, I could no longer be like, this is okay. It didn't feel okay. I had these little nudges. I wasn't sleeping. I was feeling tired. I was, there was just kind of conflict going on with teenagers and my husband and myself. It was like a knowing deep inside that I was like, I know things could be better. I know that I could have more joy and more fun. There was one thing I interviewed at work and I didn't get the job, and I kind of got some feedback about it, and they're like, yeah, you didn't seem that excited, or, and I was like thinking, we're not excited. I'm fun. I'm like, my friends in college would be like, well, Trace, My kids are like, well, I don't really know that you're fun, Mom. So I was like, I almost felt too like I had lost the joy. Like, where is the joy and the fun? It was that voice that just said, you got to take care of yourself. Let's do a retreat. And it was one of those things where it was a nudge, but because it felt intolerable,
Mm-hmm.
I said, I've got to do it.
Okay, so for the listeners out there who are like, I am feeling what Theresa's feeling. I'm not sleeping well. What else did you say? Like everything felt like you had to do everything. And
Yeah, it was all on me. Everything's on me. And that if someone else did it, I would have to redo it. And so really like just that control and not being able to let go and let other people do things. Yeah, that was a big one.
So what would you say to a listener who's feeling all that, but it's not quite intolerable yet?
Yeah.
What would you have to say to them? Or even like the younger version of you, like what would you say to the you of like 7 years ago who was feeling all the things, having nudges, but it wasn't quite intolerable yet?
I think too, like I always had a vision, right? I always had in my mind a vision about what I wanted in life. Because I can think back being in my late 20s and thinking about a career and a job that I wanted that was really around, helping others or more around, I'm like thinking, what am I really here to do? So I feel like once I kind of opened up to that, to say there is more, I'm able to help others, I'm able to really be fulfilled in what I want to do. And the other thing I would say is just take that first little step. If you have that nudge that there's more for you, you could feel better, you could have more connection, you can have more joy in your life, or you feel like something's missing. And that is definitely how I felt as well. For me, that retreat was just the first step to say, I'm going to start taking care of myself. And in that weekend, I made a commitment. And when I came back and I said, I'm going to do yoga 3 times a week. I'm going to go to the Y and I'm going to make it a priority. And I just committed to it and started doing it. And then I grew from there into doing the coaching, doing the master coaching, going and getting my yoga certification. And I just found that the more that I took care of myself, the more my relationships improved, the more that I felt better, the more excitement and joy that I had in my life. And it just sort of started building and really to this great place that I'm at right now.
I love that. And what I'm really hearing you say is that there isn't anything big or special to how it all started. It was really a matter of just listening to yourself and starting to take care of yourself. And from there, you did the retreat and then you made a commitment to do yoga. And then
3 times a week. And everybody tried to stop me. Everybody tried, everything would get in the way, right? And you just have to be committed and you have to say, I'm going to take care of myself because I'm important. And it's that whole put your oxygen mask on before you help others on the airplane. It's really starting to take care of yourself so that you can show up as a better you. And then it elevates everyone around you as well.
You just said something really, I think, important to highlight. So you mentioned you made a commitment to yourself. After the retreat, you made a commitment to yourself to do yoga 3 times a week. And then you said that everything or everyone tried to stop you. Talk more about that, because I can see some listeners making a commitment to take care of themselves and then something comes up that's kind of like resisting them being able to do the thing. And they might be like, see, the universe says I shouldn't do it. So say more about what was that like?
Yeah, it's really about prioritizing what you want to do. So I had to put it on my schedule. I had to commit to showing up. And then there was always something about maybe there was something that my kids needed or that my husband needed, or just that I didn't, I was at work all day, so I didn't feel like going. So it was always a little bit of resistance. And you're also changing patterns, right? Well, if I'm saying I'm going to go to yoga 3 times a week, well, I'm always home at this time. And so now we know where's mom. Plus you have your inner resistance because you're trying to change your old patterns. So it's really about valuing yourself and your self-care to show up for yourself and have that discipline and really love for yourself. to say, I'm going to start taking care of myself. I had to leave work on time. Maybe I had to prepare dinner ahead of time and, it's in the crock pot or whatever it was. Just really preparing myself and setting myself up for success in order to take care of myself and show up in a better way. Yeah.
I love that. Now, walk us through, because you just said some really profound things, like talking about you're having to redo patterns, talking about the inner resistance and also the outer resistance. You mentioned changing your patterns. What was that like?
It was a journey. One of the things I did was I started working with a life coach. So I went to my retreat and then I started working with a life coach. And I will never forget one of the things that she said to me at that retreat was, and it was so profound yet so simple, is that I have everything I need within me. And I think sometimes people look outside themselves for validation, for support, for, just that affirmation. They look for that love. They look outside themselves. And when I heard that I have everything inside of me that I need, it opened me up to a whole new world. So from there, I got really curious to learn more about myself. What are things that trigger me? What are my beliefs? What are things that I'm looking for outside validation? Like it was like a, that kind of that deeper level to learn about myself. So self-care is one thing, right? Taking care of myself. And then it's like, okay, let's get more into that self-awareness. And what are my patterns and what are my triggers? And so I worked with a life coach to do that for, a year or so. And then I went into my yoga training, which yoga is very, we talk a lot about the poses, but it's really about a journey into yourself as well. And so that was like the next layer. And then I found the coaching for the adult chair. I joined that coaching certification really as the next step in my journey, in my learning. And it helped me to go even deeper, right? So you talk about inner child work, understanding your triggers, understanding how you react rather than respond. And so I uncovered a deep childhood wound of, I don't matter. I was looking out into the world for everybody else to let me know that I matter. And that's a lot to put on somebody. So I worked through that childhood wounding, learned that I was looking at others to help me with that. And I really needed to grow and learn and heal that for myself. And once I started learning more about myself, I was able to just show up so much more empowered, so much more loving and compassionate and caring, and absolutely changed my relationships with myself and my relationships with my husband and my children and my family. My daughter is in college and, we can have conversations about boundaries. And I was like, wow, if I was in my early 20s, I didn't even know it was until I was almost like 50. So, it's been a journey to get me to where I am today.
I love everything that you just said. And you just hit the nail on the head when you talked about all this internal work, because I can see some of our listeners might be like, I'm here because I thought this was a career podcast. Why are we talking about this internal stuff that I don't care about? But then you said it beautifully. You said that as soon as you started to love on yourself and really work with that inner child, you started to show up more empowered. Your relationships changed. So you talked a lot about the internal pivots, so to speak, that you had to do. So let's talk about, as you started to change internally and heal yourself, how did that start showing up in your external world in terms of how you started showing up in your career, how you started showing up in your relationships?
I would say a huge thing that showed up in my career was the choice I made of where I was working. So I made a change to go into a new job, a new company where I really felt empowered, I felt appreciated. I felt valued. I felt like I had made great relationships. I got to work on things that really were meaningful. And I worked for this company for a couple of years. And this was about 5 years ago this happened, where I got the opportunity to go back to a company I'd worked for before in a higher level role and a little bit more money. And I had to make the decision, do I go back to this other company, which was a good company, or do I stay in this new company that I've been there 2 years that I just felt so empowered and so valued and like I was making such a contribution. And I went and looked at where did I feel when I considered going back to this company. I was like, where did I feel the best about myself and about my career? And it was the company I was at. And then I was like, where did I feel the worst? And it was the company that was offering me the job to go back to. So I think that the work that I had done and where I was at such a different place that I made that decision from such a different place of solid knowing myself, knowing my worth, knowing what I was capable of, and made that decision. And it wasn't based on, I can maybe make a little bit more money over here, but what is it that I really value? And what is it that I really want? So I would say that internal work I did had a huge impact on my decisions and really, giving me more of a fulfilling career and job. And from a relationship perspective, it's just, so much deeper, so much more connection, so much more conversations that are meaningful and grounded. And I know I'm saying too many fluffy words, but it's really like to have a relationship where you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel valued, you feel understood. Having those types of relationships now is so much different than what I had before. I would say the biggest reason is because of the work that I've done for myself and how I've shown up differently.
And just to show some contrast, because you talked about this decision that you were making, and most people, myself included, would probably have a spreadsheet, probably have a pros and cons list of like, why would I take this job versus that? And probably very like in their head. And it sounds like because of all the inner work that you did, I love what you did. You asked, where do I feel the best at? And where do I feel the worst at?
Where do I feel the worst? Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, like I have jumped many jobs. I don't think I've ever asked myself that question. So thank you, Theresa. Why is that important as opposed to listing what are the benefits? What the 401k? Like, what would you say to someone who's like, why does that matter? I have to support a family. So like the money matters the most, or the 401k or whatnot. Like, what would you say to someone who thinks that way?
Yeah, I can certainly understand why you would think that way. And I think sometimes, money may come into the equation more depending on the job itself. But I feel like taking into consideration how you feel in I almost want to say your mental, emotional, physical state is so important because it impacts your life, like the stress level. And I would also say that I was able to take that decision and that feeling, coming from an empowered, valued, solid, and then I was able to grow my career even more. So I was able to show up in a way where I got noticed, I got recognition, I was able to build relationships. So I almost feel like money is important, and I don't want to downplay that, but your mental and physical health is almost more important.
Yeah.
How you feel, it's going to drive how you feel about it is going to drive that emotional, that physical well-being.
Yeah. And I love what you said about how maybe when you first made the decision, it didn't seem like from a just pure external standpoint, right? You're talking about like this other job just made a little bit more and it wasn't clear. But it sounds like because you chose the one that you knew you felt better at later on in a way that you probably couldn't have imagined, you were able to grow your career and have more
Oh, yeah.
opportunities. So it
Yep.
sounds like that's really why, even if you're just purely, I care about my career, I'm a high performer, etc. That's really
Mhm.
why criteria shouldn't just be about the external stuff, but actually more importantly, your mental and emotional well-being, because that's going to make you feel empowered and valued. And later on, it will help you make decisions that will grow your career, whether it's with that company or not.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Totally agree.
I love that. So now let's switch over to your specific career pivots and what that has looked like for you. Even though you've covered a lot already, it sounds like your internal
Yeah.
pivots kind of drove the external ones.
Yeah.
Can you think about looking from like a pure career standpoint now, of all the many pivots that you've done, which is one that you look back and you're just like, whoa, I never could have seen that coming. And at the time, it was so confusing. I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm so glad I went for it.
I mean, I have been one that has moved from a lot of different industries. And so manufacturing to consulting to distribution to back to manufacturing into retail. And I think I have always been open to doing new things. So every 2 years, I'm like, what can I do next? But if I think about a big change for me was when I moved into retail and went into IT. And this was like maybe 15 or so years into my career. And I had worked in manufacturing and in process and doing different things. And people would say to me, "Oh, you're in IT." And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm not in IT." So for some reason I had this. And when I went into retail, into an IT role, I was kind of like went into it with like, yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. But what I've found, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is as I moved into that different career, all of my transferable skills allowed me to be successful. So I don't know that that's like as big of a jumping off point. Maybe I feel like my internal work and my move into more of life coaching and yoga was probably a bigger pivot for me. And that's really where I see my life's work, and that's really where I see I want to grow. And it's scary as hell because I have worked in corporate America for forever, right? And so that's where I've been successful. So I am, experiencing success in my new career of coaching in yoga and helping women. It's really exciting. But when I started to do that 2 or 3 years ago, it was pretty scary. Yeah, it was pretty scary because I had only known kind of that corporate big company. And so I would say that was probably my biggest pivot.
You know what I love about your story though, Theresa, is to me, because you work so hard on your internal world, you were able to first of all ask yourself every 2 years, oh, what's next? And then like be curious and pursue that. I mention that because I feel like for our generation and older, what our parents taught us and what school taught us was that you stay in that company and you stay there for like forever. And I think the fact that you jumped every so often was probably pretty unique for the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, at any point when you were making these changes were you just kind of like, oh, I'm just following the curiosity, or like what was it like for you? Was there any fear at all? By the way, I'm thinking about the listener who's like, she just thinks about every 2 years where she wants to go, like, and it
Yeah.
seems kind of like, and then she just went for it. So like walk us through one of those times where
Yeah.
you were just like, yeah, I was just curious, what can I do now?
So sometimes it was within the same company and sometimes it was moving to a completely new company. And I just got into this thought pattern where I was like, every 2 years, I'm like, what's next? What can I do? Where can I go? What can I be promoted to? I love doing something new. I really do. I love doing something new, and I love growing. I love learning. I love experiencing different things. And again, there's still that like common thread of who I am and what I bring to anything, right?
Mhm.
There's the organization, the excitement, there's the curiosity, there's the big picture thinking. So no matter if I'm working with a client to kind of understand, well, what's your vision and how do you get from where you are now to where you want to go in those kind of baby steps, or if it's, within a corporate job and it's really about the process of how you get from where you are to where you want to be. And you need processes, you might need technology, you definitely need people, and you really have to understand relationships in order to be successful. And that, to me, I think is the common thread that has allowed me to be able to learn and grow and do different things and be successful.
I love that. So, for anyone listening who is like still thinking, why would I do this internal world stuff when I care about my career? Well, there's your answer. Theresa has just every 2 years made a commitment to just ask herself, how can I grow? And like followed her curiosity.
Yeah.
And it seemed like you just flowed and it wasn't that difficult for you to just
Mhm.
follow the nudges once you did
Yeah.
that first nudge with the retreat. So
Yeah.
amazing. It's worth it to do your inner work, basically,
To-
is what I'm hearing.
Totally. Absolutely. Yes, it's huge. Yeah. It's so rewarding. It's absolutely a must. Yeah. I think everyone has to do it.
So for anyone who's like, okay, Theresa, I'm sold. I guess I got to look and do my inner work, but they've never done any of this before. What would you recommend to them? Where could they start?
I think you could start by just slowing down and noticing. Just slow down and notice what's going on, how you're showing up. No judgment. No, I have to fix it. It's just slow down and notice. And then start doing little things to just start taking care of yourself. It could be small things. It could be, a walk outside. It could be have a cup of tea. It could be anything where you just start to slow down and notice and take care of yourself in small ways. That's where I would start.
Okay. I love that. Slow
Yeah.
down and self-care, the two S's.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's a journey, right? It's like an upward spiral. So you're continuing to learn and grow, and you may take a step back and a few steps forward, but you're always going upward and growing in that journey.
I love that. Theresa, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience and your journey. If people are like, I really am feeling Theresa's vibe, how do I get to know her better? How can they get in touch with you?
A couple of ways. So you can go to my website. It's peacefulwellbeing.com. And I have a free self-care guide there. So you can get the self-care guide and you can get some of those ideas on how do I start to just take care of myself. I also have a free gentle yoga series, which is 4 weeks. Over 4 weeks, you get an email that has a 5-minute quick yoga practice and an intention. And I'll give that to you. You can put it in the show notes for the listeners. They can have that. And then it also has on my website my coaching program, Reclaim You, which is an 8-week coaching program to really understand, where you're at and then where you want to go. So it's kind of that step by step to get you to whatever that vision is for your life, or at least just to start.
I love it. And Theresa, one last question that I'd like to ask all my guests before we end the show. If you were an item in a cafe, so it could be a drink or like a pastry or something like that, what would you
Yeah.
be and why?
Well, the first thing, I'm just going to go with the first thing that pops into my head, and it would be a hot cup of tea.
Ooh.
because I'm warm and soothing.
That is just so in line with everything that we talked about. Any particular type of tea or any cup of tea?
Like it would be, I've been drinking oolong tea that has all these adaptogens in it with lion's mane and reishi and turmeric and ginger. So it would just be like a really soothing, calming cup of tea. Yeah.
Perfect. And with that, Theresa, again, thank you so much for being on the show. And listeners, definitely check her out. She's amazing. And see you next time.
Thank you.
Whoa, that was freaking incredible. Huge thanks to Theresa Steighner for bringing the realness. If you're feeling inspired or maybe a little called out in the best way, I see you. You don't have to figure this out alone. Head to www.leadintact.com to grab my free heart-aligned career transition starter or book a consultation call with me. Your pivot starts with one small move. Let's make it together.